And here I am again with more Atari 2600 games. This time it's a collection of 25 games that I'm either unfamiliar with or haven't played many times before. All of them are interesting for one reason or another, so I hope you're as excited as I am to take another look. This time I will be using an emulator. Sure, like last time I'd prefer to play on the 2600, but wanted to avoid the numerous complications this time. I will continue using that setup for future videos, but just not this one. Stay till the end for my closing discussion of this 3-part series on the Atari 2600 library. Or 5-part series, depends if you count the others. Let's get started. Air Raid. I do like to go in alphabetical order on this channel, so why not start with one of the rarest games of all time? Why is it always this one, Menavision's infamous T-handle Air Raid, that gets so much attention when Gamma Attack is more rare with only one copy known to exist? Well, that game's owned by a private collector, so it doesn't really have market value. The main reason we talk about Air Raid is because in April 2010, a complete copy of the game sold for $31,600 USD, almost $48,000 adjusted for inflation. By 2010 standards, that was an insane amount of money for a collectible video game. It was so remarkable, in fact, that major news outlets picked it up. This put video game collecting on the map for tons of people. I should note that nobody really cares about Air Raid the game. Rarely does anyone talk about the actual game. The discussion comes from the allure of its rarity, with less than 20 copies believed to exist, much fewer with the original packaging. It's said that Air Raid is a bootleg of VidTech's Space Jockey as it shares some of its code, so is likely a template for its development. According to an address in the manual, Air Raid was designed in Los Angeles, California, although the official Atari website mentions Ontario, Canada, somehow. Its box says it was printed and made in Taiwan, maybe on Menavision's behalf? The plot of Air Raid is, your enemies are bombing Manhattan. Prevent 12 hits from impacting the 2 looping buildings below using your command post. Unfortunately, there's no way to win. Once both Manhattan, New York skyscrapers are destroyed, the game ends. Don't hate the messenger. Honestly, Air Raid isn't too bad. The gameplay loop is enjoyable enough. I like it more than Space Jockey. It has the feel of a prototype for a game that would have ended up much better at launch. If the enemies didn't zip out of existence and that awful hit detection was improved, I might even recommend it. As a ROM. Please don't spend $8.5K for Air Raid. Alien. Yes, that Alien. If you found this cartridge without a label, would you ever think of Alien? Probably not. Either way, you'll be squashing eggs a la Pac-Man inside your ship that is currently swarming with aliens. I like how the eggs appear unevenly among the rows. Gives it more personality. Prizes will occasionally show up that you can collect for points. There are also pulsar pickups that weaken the aliens for a short time. Though if you destroy one, it'll just return at the bottom anyways. Yeah, it really is Pac-Man with modifiers. You can use a flamethrower to scare away the aliens, sort of. You might think to shoot them directly, but no, you'll just end up dead. Instead, use it like a flashlight. Blink it around and the aliens will directionally spaz out for a moment. Often gives you the chance to escape, but not always. It doesn't work on the far left or right of the screen, so keep that in mind. There's an extra dodging intermission where you have to pass incoming aliens for a prize at the end. One hit and you're back to the ship. Overall, this is a fun interpretation of Pac-Man, and I recommend it. But it doesn't feel much like an Alien game. Aquaventure. This game was finished in 1983, but shelved for unspecified reasons. Possibly because Atari had tighter restrictions resulting from the market crash. They've since included it in their flashback consoles, making it a now well-known game. So much so that Atari released it officially in 2022 for $50. The limited edition $150 cartridge glows.
That is quite the thing. You can't really see anything except LEDs blaring directly into my eyeballs because of the angle. Yeah, from where I'm sitting, that's all I see.
The goal is to get to the bottom screen, collect a treasure, then return to the top with a mermaid to win. You can shoot whatever fish surround you for points, but it's not a focus. They'll just respawn anyways, and there is a time limit to consider, in the form of oxygen, which the turtle above is indicating. If it reaches the air sign, you die. During later rounds, you have just enough time to grab the treasure and get back, which at that point makes the fish more of a nuisance than a target. There are different threats the deeper you go, and some areas have spiky walls to avoid touching. Aquaventure is a fun game, and while not a favorite per se, I can see myself coming back to it occasionally. Bermuda Triangle. I thought this might be like Sequest. Not really. You pilot a mini-sub that's discovered a lost city in the mysterious Bermuda Triangle. There are artifacts below that might give an answer to the triangle's dark real-world history. You'll be traveling at high speeds searching for the artifacts as they speed across. Hold down on the joystick to pick one up. Be careful because the egg-shaped things are actually bombs. Picking one of those up will kill you. While holding an artifact, this ditty starts to play. So long as you don't bump into anything on the way up, you can give the artifact to a friendly yellow ship above for points. You need to avoid the red enemy ship though. The two ships alternate the entire game, so just follow the pattern. After achieving 10,000 points, a defense system is activated in the city below. It'll occasionally send a screen-height laser blast tracking the friendly and enemy ships above, so you need to position yourself away from them as often as possible, despite the fact that you need to touch one for the gameplay loop. Yeah, this was a dumb idea for the game. Did I mention you can't move diagonally? It was already difficult enough. There's a separate game mode to activate the defense system immediately from the beginning, but unfortunately not one to get rid of it altogether. I wanted to recommend this game, but considering that, Condor Attack. 1 million years into the future, an intergalactic dispute erupts into a time warp that sends us back to the Stone Ages. Now released from extinction, large ferocious condors, nitrobeam spiders, and Vulcanian bats are attacking. One of your remote fire bases survived the time warp, somehow. Use it to give the few remaining scientists enough time to figure out how to reverse the time warp. That last part isn't present in the game, it's just a repeating space shooter. The enemies above descend towards you in pairs, but you can shoot them before they get closer. Said enemies change based on the game mode. Yeah, they don't change after a wave, only repeating ad nauseum in their game mode. Apparently the three types behave differently, more erratically and/or shoot faster. When a nearby enemy explodes, you're unable to shoot for a moment, despite the chaos continues. This can be problematic, especially once the enemies start traveling directly next to your ship. Condor Attack isn't as bad as I had figured it would be, but it does nothing the competition hasn't done better. So if you're sick and tired of Phoenix or Demon Attack, sure, try Condor Attack, but it isn't remotely as good as either. Deadly Duck. Huh, its cartridge looks like an Activision game. You play as a duck shooting bill bullets at crusty crabs. Yep, that's what the manual calls them. I like the sound effects they've used here. Crabs fire bricks that can either kill you on contact or trap you into a small section of playing space. You can shoot the bricks before they fall, or better yet, destroy all the crabs so they'll stop firing. Oh no, dragonflies. These are invulnerable. Shoot them and they'll drop down bombs at you. They're a real troublesome enemy when you're already trapped by those crab bricks. As the waves complete, enemy numbers increase and the game speeds up. Once there are so many dragonflies, you have to start to focus on an increasingly narrow window of space to shoot the crabs. It ends up being more frustrating than fun. I wish you could somehow destroy the dragonflies, but there's no such method. I also found the duck's projectile speed is questionably slow. So we've already got all these issues going on, but on top of that, enemy movements are entirely unpredictable. Deadly Duck constantly sabotages its pacing, which is a real bummer, because there was actually a lot of potential here. M.A.S.H. Yes, this is based on the TV show, which is probably why it's not as popular in modern day. But this is easily as good as something you'd find from Activision's library. Set during the Korean War of the 1950s, rescue injured men from the battlefield. Collect no more than 5 wounded soldiers at a time, then bring them back to the M.A.S.H. base alongside your computer friend, who's competing with you for who can rescue the most. Even head-on collisions won't stop these guys. Navigating around the trees is a bit tricky, despite the computer has zero trouble with it. Pay attention to that tank on the bottom. It stalks the player with the most points. Getting hit will knock down your helicopter, but it's shortly after repaired and back into action. Lives don't exist in this game, you just have to reach the goal of collecting 30 men altogether. Once completed, you'll then move on to the surgery rounds, where you basically play Operation to remove shrapnel from wounded soldiers. The moment you touch a wall, you're taken back to the helicopter. No second chances. It's tough, and the short time limit requires you to rush it. Instead of playing with a computer opponent, you can have a second player take over. I played it with Nausea, and she enjoyed it. There's another game variation where you both have to collect paratroopers, almost like Kaboom. And this was fun in single player, but actually kind of felt messy in multiplayer. The surgery part is still present in multiplayer, by the way. You'll be alternating turns. There's another mode you can select that almost acts like training for the surgeon part, just repeating this section with different patterns to squeeze through. Evidently, you don't need to know anything about M.A.S.H. to enjoy this game, which is nothing against M.A.S.H. of course. It is a show I'd like to watch eventually. Oh god, not again! Out of Control. Here's an interesting one. It looks like a space shooter, but plays a bit like Olympic racing. You have to maneuver through or past a series of space buoys, pop 10 space balloons, then safely park in the space dock. Why is it even in space? This could have easily been a boat instead. Maybe it was easier to do a black background? There's no shooting here. Just navigate correctly around 28 different obstacle courses. It does take a little time to adjust to the controls. Inertia is a factor here. You'll have to make sudden adjustments fairly often, so don't expect to win right away. If you do anything out of order, or touch one of the obstacles, you'll have to restart the course with the reset button. So ultimately, the idea of this game is to see how quickly you can complete the courses. The developer left their best times to beat in the manual. Considering the small production run of this game, you probably wouldn't know a distant friend to compete with, so the developer scores being included almost feels like a necessity. Unless you want to play with family who will also need to adjust to the controls. Out of Control is a moderately fun game, if not to complete courses, at least to see how far you can get in the available selection of 28. Put some music on in the background though, because this one's quiet. Planet Patrol. The planet Spectra has been invaded. Dodge invulnerable enemy torpedoes while destroying incoming fighter ships. Rescue stranded friendlies in black ships that occasionally fly past the screen, and shortly after you'll encounter a missile base that you need to destroy. Once you do, debris covers half the screen. You'll need to proceed with caution, then take to the landing strip to refuel. Your controls are just up, down, and shoot, so these sequences more or less happen automatically. Awesome graphical presentation with this one. I like the shadow under your craft that moves as you do. The day-to-night cycle is neat, and having the sun or moon visible is a nice detail. When the night comes, the only way to see ahead of you is by shooting, all while those enemy fighters and missiles are still approaching. It's tense, but much less difficult to manage than I expected. Planet Patrol is great. The only complaint I have with this one is that there's only one enemy type to shoot. Even one alternate ship to fight would have added a lot more variety. Ram It. This one is often compared with another game called Squeezebox, which isn't great. I'm not sure if this one is either. No real story in the manual, just says you're using your Ramroid to destroy Rainbow Raiders. That's about it. Bars will grow towards you and you'll need to shoot them back to survive. If one pushes beyond your Ramroid, you'll end up stuck, spoiling your chance at completion. If you are able to eliminate every color bar within the limited time, you get bonus points. You are able to double shot the Rainbow Raiders, but it's a bit tricky to pull off. Satisfying nonetheless. You'll be focusing on one area of the screen, and then another starts creeping up on you, and that's the excitement factor here, basically. It's not much. Ram It is an example of a 2600 game that is perhaps too simple. Room of Doom. Some people like to call this one Berserk too. You're trapped in the Room of Doom with fiendish gunmen trying to annihilate you. Shots come out from portholes that mysteriously open and close. It's during this moment where you can shoot into the porthole to eliminate the gunman behind it. Do this for as many gunmen are on screen. You can even shoot diagonally, which is rarely successful, but can be useful against the monster. Yes, there's a monster in the Room of Doom, and the manual says it relentlessly pursues you, but it relents a little. That's a good thing, because otherwise, they could have been super annoying. Instead, they provide an extra, welcome challenge that keeps the player on their toes. There are a total of 16 rooms to complete, meaning yes, you can actually beat this game. Did you die on a difficult wave? Hit the black and white switch to return where you left off. Room of Doom is an awesome game, and a breath of fresh air in the Atari library. So glad I found this one. Look, he's playing bongos. Snoopy and the Red Baron. A bunch of pesky Red Barons have stolen your doggy treats. Use your limited range doghouse to take them down while buzzing around like your average housefly. Destroy a predetermined number of Red Barons to complete your first round, collecting falling doggy treats along the way. Be careful not to shoot them. When a round ends, there's a tally screen showing how many treats you got and Red Barons were destroyed. This game's presentation is next level. It has an actual soundtrack, and someone clearly put a lot of time into animating that plane. Your own doghouse will show visible damage after taking hits, letting you know how close you are to losing a life. I don't think you get such an indication for the enemy planes, though. The gameplay loop of this one ends up feeling trivial when you realize, so long as you don't face the enemy plane, you can basically survive forever, which is a bigger problem because of how many doghouses you get. I was playing the standard mode for about 12 minutes, which was more than I wanted to get out of this. Snoopy and the Red Baron could have used a little more variety, like maybe a night scene similar to Planet Patrol. Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. It's the first officially licensed Star Wars video game. You're trying to keep the enemy walkers from destroying your power generator. Take on the walkers yourself by navigating with your radar to defeat as many as possible. With every 8 shots, the walkers will change color. The more damage it takes, the less speed and accuracy you can expect from it. You can freely travel from one walker to another, then return and finish them off later. Not like there's much of a reason for doing that. 48 hits in total are required to take down a walker, or by shooting a smaller flashing bomb that occasionally shows up on them. Making that shot is difficult. Oftentimes it seems like you've made it, but nothing happens. You can take 5 hits before your own craft gets destroyed. The color of your ship, like the walkers, determines how much health you have. You can repair your ship by idling on the ground a distance from the walkers, but only twice per life. Staying alive for 2 minutes activates the Force, making your ship invulnerable for 20 seconds. I don't know about this one personally. I feel like there's something missing. Even once you figure out how to bounce around the walkers without dying, you have to spend so much time on a single one, and I didn't find that particularly fun. Not to mention, it takes a while to run out of your 5 ships, so no matter what, it's gonna be a long game. I've tried to get into this one a few times now, but I'm just not sure if I can. Suicide Mission. Here's another Starpath Supercharger game. I'm not sure if it needed to be, but not for me to answer. You'll travel through a bloodstream with a lethal virus. Huh, that sounds familiar. You'll need to shoot at the virus piece by piece as it deteriorates in front of you. If you press down on the joystick, you can activate short-term invincibility, but keep it on for too long and it overheats, losing a life. Now, by this point you're probably thinking, hey, that's just a more complicated Asteroids. And you'd be right. Whereas Asteroids, at least on 2600, has many different game modes, this has 3 difficulties. Suicide Mission is alright as an alternative, but no better than Asteroids. Survival Run. Here's an interesting title. This came with a special controller called the Cosmic Commander. According to a comment I read, it was little more than a dumb flashlight toy. Otherwise, documentation of it is slim. Same goes for its partner game controller, the Flight Commander, for Spitfire Attack. These were Milton Bradley's weird little adventure into the 2600 market. My perception is that it was to give players an ultra-immersive experience, and for its time, maybe? The NES was still a distance away in 1983. You don't need either of these controllers to play either game. I did try Spitfire Attack during my last part, but it's just one screen where the enemies infinitely respawn in the same spot. It's unfortunate for a game that looks this good. Survival Run is a better game, but it's not great. Like Spitfire Attack, it has fidelity, but that accounts for most of the experience. This is a first-person, on-the-rails shooter, and might be one of its kind on the 2600. The story is very simple. You've entered a complex maze of subterranean tunnels with no way to turn back. Follow your onboard computerized map through a survival run against alien guards and force fields. They don't say defenses because it's really just that one thing, the force field, that rarely shows up. Shoot its power box and it shuts off. As per the alien guards... I know it's Atari, but I still feel like they could have done better here. When you come up to a wall, check your minimap above and aim your cursor at the correct direction. If you pick wrong, you'll crash, and that's game over. No lives here. The game also ends when you run out of energy, but I didn't after 10 minutes, and I gave up. Yeah, Survival Run looks cool at first, but the game is about as fun as washing your ass. There is an eventual boss encounter, but that goes exactly as you'd expect. Threshold. So the story goes, you're cruising through space when suddenly, a bunch of alien fighters start attacking you in waves of 6 against 1. So I guess you ended up somewhere you're not supposed to be. Turn back? No way, they're fighting so hard to keep me out, they must be hiding something. In Threshold, you can freely navigate within half of the screen. It's one of those games where you can only have one active player missile at a time, with new shots cancelling out the old. The rainbow patterns on the side help to give this one a sense of speed and urgency. It almost feels like a space road. Enemies have seeking missiles which switch directions at the last second. I could only adapt to that by moving near constantly. Wait, why is game mode 1 the hardest? 2 is medium, 3 is easy. Odd. Okay, that's a little better. The mechanics haven't changed, but it's not playing as fast. After 6 enemies are destroyed, you go to the next wave with a unique set to shoot. You get points for however much of the time limit remains. This goes on for 11 waves, if you can last that long with 3 lives. Threshold is a hard one. At first I thought it was too frustrating, but after about 5 minutes of play, figuring out how everything works, yeah, I was able to get into it. Worm War 1. Oh no, an invasion of giant realistically animated worms! They look great and they're fun to shoot too. Big fan of the sound effects. Worm War 1 has fully destructible environments in the form of giant colored blocks. You'll occasionally need to clear a path, generally to be able to enter a covered gas station. These show up every few screens to refuel your ship. You can accelerate in Worm War 1 by holding up, and you'll get more gas return when you run into the station at high speeds. Makes no sense, but adds to the challenge. There aren't lives to worry about here. Touching worms will just drain your fuel, so you'll want to destroy them before they get too close. I know Worm War 1 might look like fun, but it has a big problem. It's not challenging. At all. You'll do this for minutes only to get bored with the repetitivity. If there were more stakes here, it might be pretty fun. So in that case, I decided to try the other modes, and these were odd. You can remove all the blocks and just shoot worms. Fun. The worms can go invisible, only flashing on screen every so often. And you can play these in cooperative multiplayer. Man, how cool is this? Before you hit reset, the game mode is demonstrated to you live with a CPU player. I can't immediately think of another game that does this on the 2600. Usually everything's at a standstill until you start. We did try the cooperative mode off camera. Nausea said it was lots of fun for 5 minutes. Not as an insult to the game, she said it would fit perfectly in a compilation of games that you'd quickly switch through. And that changed my perspective a bit. Shooting dumb worms together was enjoyable for the short time that we played. It's really up to you how to play the game, though I figure the point was to traditionally lose and collect your high score, right? Like a lot of Atari games, perhaps they were too generous with player health. So those were all the original titles for today. Now I'd like to take into consideration some ports or demakes of existing arcade games, starting with Buck Rogers' Planet of Zoom. I was born far too late for Buck Rogers, but I found out this is really just a Japanese arcade game known as Zoom 909. Transitioning to the Western market, Sega picked up the Buck Rogers license and used it for this game. First things first, you'll be delicately flying through electron posts, keeping an eye on that middle number for how many you need to pass. Enemies will show up here after a while, and you can either shoot them for points or dodge them outright. The second section of the game puts you in space where, once again, pay attention to the middle number for how many, this time enemy spaceships, you need to destroy. Next comes the mothership. Destroy both halves of it during one pass to defeat it, otherwise it'll continue to repair and hover around. The player can adjust their speed at any time, and you should want to get a move on, because that green line above is your time limit and it goes down fast. As you could expect, every time you loop through the game, it gets harder. There are better versions of this game out there, but hey, it's a 2600 shoot 'em up. You know I had to cover it. Defender. This would be the last of my original collection that I haven't yet discussed. As the story goes, Earth sent signals out to space and aliens have come to visit, but unfortunately for no good reasons. Now their ships are kidnapping people and converting them into hideous flying mutants. If an alien ship takes someone from the ground, you'll hear an audio cue. Use the radar to see what enemies are around. If you can find the alien ship before it takes the civilian to the top, you can destroy it, rescue the civilian, and then bring them back to the surface. Destroy all the aliens, save as many people as you can in the process, then proceed to the next wave. So on and so forth. Some alien ships have unique behaviors, like pods for example, that split into the smaller swarmers when you shoot them. They tend to spawn wildly off the mark, which can be a problem if that happens to be right next to you. Yeah, like that. At least you can use a smart bomb to destroy everything on screen, by moving to the city below and pressing fire. You can also teleport to a random position by going up top and pressing fire. If all the humans in a wave are captured by the aliens, the city below is destroyed and you're left with a chaotic mutant battle. This won't change until you reach a wave multiple of 5. Many say this game doesn't look great, and I will admit the enemies themselves aren't terribly interesting. One common complaint is that the ship disappears while you fire. Myself, I always interpreted it like the light of your fire is so bright that it cancels out the visual of the ship. I think Defender is fun on the 2600, although it could have been better. And that's exactly what Stargate accomplished as the 2600 sequel. I've only played it briefly, but long enough to know that it's a huge improvement. Frogger Official Arcade. Well, we've got one more Supercharger game to cover here. In Official Frogger, you gotta get the frog from one side of a road to its swamp beyond. I'm mainly talking about this port because I'm very familiar with the Parker Brothers version, but never tried this one. It sure is different. The presentation is the obvious improvement here, with the selection of music tracks that sound great while you're playing. This version also has the otter from the arcade counterpart, not present in the Parker Brothers version. It ended up taking me longer to collect the lady frog in this one. The logs move slower, yet I'm used to picking her up for every run, so I found myself waiting around a lot. The traffic is also far more aggressive by comparison. What is this, freeway? Going off 25 years of Parker Brothers Frogger experience, I think both are excellent interpretations of the original. When it comes to arcade accuracy, official Frogger takes the cake, but I actually felt that the gameplay loop is slightly more engaging in the earlier Parker Brothers version. GORF. The evil Gorfian Empire has launched an all-out attack. Repel the invasion and defeat the enemy flagship. I've always thought of GORF like it's numerous games in one, with the 2600 version following that concept, though with the exception of a Galaxian wave. The space warp scene is here, which is the weakest of the bunch and goes on for far too long. It's disappointing how most enemies in this game don't even make a sound when you destroy them. When you reach the flagship, destroy it by shooting directly into its center. Then the game loops. Survive as long as you can for points. You've probably noticed that the player's projectile is a bit slow, and there can be just one on screen at a time, so it vanishes if you shoot again. As far as I understand, this mechanic originated from GORF, so I consider it a GORF thing, and I could never really get into GORF. The whole identity crisis thing it has going on is quirky and interesting, but the games which inspired it feel much better to play. Space Invaders. Aliens from space have come to threaten the Earth. Wipe them out before they reach the planet's surface. As you shoot the aliens, you may notice you have 3 shields for defense, but it comes apart with every hit, so you can't entirely rely on them. The aliens move left to right, then down on every rotation. When they get to the bottom, the game ends regardless of your lives counter. Occasionally a command ship will pass at the top, which will give you some bonus points if you land the shot. You might be wondering how I'm able to shoot twice. Usually you can only shoot 1 missile at a time. This is by holding down the reset switch while powering on the game. It does change the energy of the game, so I'm glad it's not the default, but it does make for a good high score category. Space Invaders went on to be a 2600 system seller. The game was very popular in arcades, and is said to be the jumpstart Atari needed for their mass appeal. Space Invaders comes with 112 game variations, letting players totally customize the experience. You couldn't do that with the arcade game. Luckily, the manual comes with a legend that describes what they all do. I believe each selectable game has optional multiplayer, where 2 cannons will be on screen at once. This was the most fun I've ever had with Space Invaders. Teaming up changes the experience entirely. You get into a mutual mindset like, oh, you're taking that row? Okay, I got this one. So yeah, we both liked Space Invaders multiplayer. Many have said that the 2600 version of Space Invaders is better than its arcade counterpart. I've never been huge on the game in general. I feel the arcade shooter formula evolved a great deal afterwards, so if Space Invaders and other shooter games are also available at the arcade, I'm probably not playing Space Invaders. But I'll play it in multiplayer anytime. Let's go. Tapper. You play as a frenzied bartender trying to reach your customers' demands. Like with any job, you'd be struggling too if everyone else called in sick. Toss sodas down the table to whoever's asking, then move to the next table for another customer. By the time you're finished, the first customers want more soda. Now be careful in the frenzy of it all, not to throw more sodas than there are customers. If one falls to the ground, you lose a life. You can also lose a life by forgetting to collect a customer's soda, or by the time they reach the front where they'll toss you down the table. For shame. Tapper's a great game, and I haven't played a bad version of it. The 2600 version is no exception, as functionally this is an identical experience. Even the intermission is here, where you have to find the unshaken soda. I don't know what the hell he's doing when you make the right choice. And listen to that, a real soundtrack as you play. The visuals are top-notch as well, with people that actually represent the caricature of a human being. One thing I should probably note is the presence of soda. In the arcade it would be either Budweiser or root beer, I think. Depended on where your arcade game of Tapper's located, I guess. But in this port, it's specifically Mountain Dew. They really predicted console gamers, didn't they? No doubt, this is one of the 2600's most faithful arcade ports. Funny how obscure it is, though. Most don't even seem to be aware that Tapper's on the system. Wizard of War. In the mystical kingdom of war, you're in command of an elite squadron assigned to outwit the sinister Wizard of War. In his diabolical dungeons, you'll encounter deadly warlings, and maybe even the wizard himself. Destroy all the warlings within the maze using your laser. Be careful, as most of them have the ability to shoot. You're usually safe from behind, which seems to be the correct approach. Sometimes the warlings will go invisible, so you'll have to check out the radar on occasion to find them, but they will flash occasionally. After eliminating all the warlings, you'll come across the Warlock. This intense battle music plays while it's on screen. From what I played, it felt like a 50-50 chance whether the wizard will show up immediately after. He constantly teleports around the maze, which is a tad annoying, but once you defeat him, you're rewarded a ton of points. If he defeats you, there's no second chance. He gets away and you're left to continue the game. There are tunnels on the left and right, kinda like Pac-Man, but in Wizard of War, this passage temporarily closes. I found the Warlock will pass through to escape if given the chance. What a coward. Wizard of War has cooperative multiplayer, so we tried that. Jumped into a game with no context beyond run around and shoot the monsters. Simple. I like that because it means I could really play this with anyone, old school gamer or not.
You know what? I like this very much.
Yeah, you like this one?
One thing of note is that friendly fire exists, so be careful not to shoot the other player.
Oh, get him, get him. Oh, you shot me. It's okay.
Me and Nazia played a couple more rounds of this after the filming stopped, and that's about the best praise I can give something. I've only recently started playing Wizard of War. Having only seen footage of the arcade game in the past, this seems like a faithful recreation. One thing that was annoying, which is common in older games, is when you approach a corner, unless you've entered the applicable space to change directions, you'll push forward instead. Otherwise, no complaints. Zaxxon. The evil robot Zaxxon and its fierce armies have conquered an asteroid belt. Navigate through their space fortresses and destroy everything in your path. Then enter space and fight off incoming enemy squadrons. Eventually you'll encounter the Zaxxon and get the chance to end its reign of terror. Zaxxon is a unique shooter. You control the ship's ascension instead of the traditional forward and backward movement. The arcade originally used an isometric view, but this version abandons that for a sort of third-person perspective. No, it isn't as cool, but I do like this concept. You can play this without having played the original and probably wouldn't complain? Well, I guess that depends, because Zaxxon is known for being a little hard to control. You're relying on height perception, which is difficult to pull off in fake 3D or two-dimensional games to be technical. You end up spending more time trying to shoot stuff as opposed to actually shooting stuff. There is a height ruler on the left, but I'm not sure how that's supposed to help considering it lines up with the height of your craft. I do like how there's an active shadow underneath. The hardest enemies to hit are hovering planes during the Space Fortress section. I'm not sure if I even hit one. Oh, look at that, I did hit one. All this time, keep in mind your fuel meter at the bottom. You can shoot fuel tanks to fill it back up. Pfft, imagine that. I wish this was a good game. The potential for it was there, but in this state, yeah, it's rough. You might be asking after all these titles, why even bother with inferior versions of existing arcade games? Well, keep in mind how Atari gaming is usually done in sessions, quick swapping from one game to another. Maybe after playing some Activision game you think, hey, why not play a round of Tapper? I'm feeling Wizard of War. And how about a quick game of Frogger? In the moment, it doesn't end up mattering to me that I'm playing an inferior version. If I'm simply in the mood to play some Atari, then these'll do just as well. Many of these versions have their own unique spunk, like Battlezone, Berserk, and Solar Fox to name a few. Something else to consider is a lot of handheld devices don't necessarily emulate arcade that well, whether it be in technical specifications or just the form factor of the device itself, but Atari games are going to run fine on anything. Wow, I now have 5 Atari 2600 compilation videos, with a total of 127 unique games from the original library covered. I've enjoyed making these more than the complete console library videos because, well, in these I get to choose the selection. Now I will also sprinkle some footage of other highly praised 2600 games that I haven't discussed, which you might want to check out. Not to necessarily vouch for them, some here I don't even know how to play yet. I can only show you this selection of games here because of emulation. It would be a nightmare for me to have to record all of this on a CRT, not to mention the PAL region games which I wouldn't even be able to run. Look, emulation has its perks. Never feels the same as original hardware, but as a tool, it is a highly valuable resource. Oh, would you look at that? I've actually collected more games for this segment than the entirety of this video. I hope I can ramble long enough for them to all show before the video ends. Ooh, that's a good one. Look at that. Wow. I am going to play it. If you're thinking of some game that I need to show here, it might not be because I've covered it already. Activision games, M.A.S.H games, and whatever were shown in my last few videos. Oh hey, there's an Activision game. Thwacker. A supposedly 80% finished prototype from 1984 that was discovered in 2001. It's considered to be playable, for the most part. Mother Thwacker. You know, one other thing to mention. Back in the day, or at least before the video game crash, Atari games weren't necessarily cheap, so oftentimes you would only have a couple of games. There wasn't too much gaming journalism back then, but from what I understand, the actual quality of the game was a bit of a gamble for the consumer, which provides insight to why people got so mad at 2600 cover art. That's largely what they had to go by. You might ask, hey, why didn't you just discuss all these games in the video? Well, I can't cover everything, not today at least. I also don't want to commit to reviewing each and every one of these. This wasn't even supposed to be a long video to begin with. Next time I might take a break from the original set of 2600 games and delve into the homebrew scene a bit. Although, I'm thinking of maybe deviating from the 2600 altogether. What about a grab bag of Intellivision games? That could be fun. We'll see what happens. Speaking of Intellivision, here's something you might not have known. Remember those M Network games on Atari 2600? The M actually stands for Mattel, and Mattel is the company behind Intellivision. In most cases, these M Network games are Intellivision games redesigned for the 2600. Note the design of the cartridge, with that slanted bit on the end? Yeah, very similar to Intellivision's. This is something I've learned about numerous times in the past, but always end up forgetting somehow, so I figured including it in this video should help me from forgetting it again. You might be wondering what's the best Atari 2600 model to get. You can debate back and forth between the 6-switch and 4-switch models. Some buttons are moved around, apparently the RF shielding in a 6-switch is better, resulting in a more vivid picture. And maybe that's true, but funnily enough, I haven't personally used a 6er before. In my opinion, the coolest 2600 is the Coleco Gemini. Weird story behind that. Coleco basically cloned the Atari and sold it, got sued, then had to pay a fee for every system sold. Why is it the coolest model? Because the controller ports are on the front, and the difficulty switches are right next to them. Huge improvement. I had the chance to buy one long ago, but for some reason I didn't. I have since heard that the controller ports on them have a tendency to fail, so maybe I'm glad I didn't, because the Atari models were built to last. The Coleco Gemini also came with an interesting hybrid joystick paddle controller, and apparently those are quite good. I have held one before, but never used it for a game. Would like to. Before I close up today, I'd like to give a shout out to a couple channels that over the years have been my source for discovering a lot of these interesting, obscure 2600 games, like Aqualung Game Reviews, Classic Game Room, Greg's Game Room, High Retro Game Lord, and the No Swear Gamer. That's all I have planned for this one, so thanks for watching as always, and I hope to catch you guys in the next video.